Team Penske. Noah all riled up over allegations of omitting another key fact by Creep Eek Meek. What do these men have in common? Welcome to ePredators Daily. I'm your host, Alexa Nikolas. Let's digest. So a lot of you might know that I am a survivor of SA. Something I did not know that I was going to come across on my journey towards justice was the fact that not only are you dealing with a bunch of alleged predators, but you're also dealing with their lawyers. And I did not realize that their lawyer can also be an alleged predator. Have you ever heard of a man named Bryan Freedman? He is was a top Hollywood lawyer who represented a wonderful client list like Michael Jackson's estate, Kevin Spacey, Dipshit, Jake Paul, Chris Cuomo, Jeff Ross, David Dobrik, David Hunt, and Rye, my abuser. He is the man that all other men go to when they're in desperate need of patching up their careers after they have allegedly SA bleep, 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 hashtag me too, the whole thing. For some reason, no one has really dug into Bryan Freedman's dirty laundry. He's the one usually doing all the digging up against survivors, but no one's ever looked into Bryan Freedman, strangely. Okay, so I had this ongoing sad joke about Googling a man with SA allegations next to his name, just to see what comes up, because you just never know, right, these days? So one night my husband and I were chilling on the couch and I thought, should we Google Bryan Freedman with SA allegations? And to me, it was like a ridiculous even thing to think of, because there's not many lawyers that have allegations like that. And if they did, most likely those women are bound up in NDAs and it was all settled and it's hush hush. So the chances of finding it, very slim. But I Googled it anyways. And there was really nothing, honestly, until page 2. Page 2 had this strange website that was like cutouts of Berkeley articles from the 80s. That's how old Bryan Freedman is. Anyways, I saw that there was a Bryan Freedman allegations Berkeley newspaper cutout. Clicked on it. It was a horrific story. Too bad Bryan Freedman can't get kicked out of the bar the same way that I would get kicked out of YouTube for even saying one sentence that's in his complaint. After confirming that it was the Bryan Freedman, I was appalled. And not only was I appalled, not only was I shocked, I was absolutely terrified to get into a room and be deposed by an alleged while I talk about my trauma of it just seemed unethical, out of line, and absolutely inappropriate. So when I called my lawyers to let them know I did not want to ever be deposed by Bryan Freedman, I found out that I had no choice. There was no protection for survivors to not be deposed by an alleged abuser. None. That freaked me out. I also couldn't believe it was true that no one knew about Bryan Freedman's past, that no one spoke about it. There was not one article in Hollywood Reporter, not article anywhere that he had this horrendous past. So I thought that my only hope was to start calling different media outlets and asking them, did you know the fact that Bryan Freedman had this past? Do you know about these public court documents? And you know what I found out? Not one publication anywhere, ever, wanted to speak about Bryan Freedman's past. But after what I ended up learning about him, I felt the need to do something myself since nobody else was going to do anything. And I decided to protest his law firm. And that's where I came across Ethan Millman. and Noah Chapman and Mr. Me Too guy, Jason, whatever, and Marlo, whatever, the dog. It's not a boys' club at all over there, Rolling Stone, as you can tell. Bryan Freedman, I still have you. I asked you 2 questions that you still did not answer because you disappeared just the same way that Dan Schneider has as well. You actually no. Apparently, you represent Tucker and Don Lemon. Then I say Don Lemon, Sour Lemon. You represent Tucker and Sour Lemon. But you never answered, which I find offensive. You answered to everything. You love answering and being a about, especially to survivors. You love doing that, but not for yourself. Why? But I'm going to ask you again. And I also want to ask this one because it was on a sign. And I don't think I asked it, though, in the video. Did lawyer Freedman disclose his 91 essay case in his moral character application? Answer it. If you didn't do it, answer it. I want to see your moral character application. I want to know if it was a state bar that or it's you that you a liar or are they a liar. So again, I actually want to say it again. Did lawyer Freedman disclose his 91 essay case in his moral character application? And for those of you that don't know what the I'm talking about, which I didn't know either until I went down this horrible alleged predator wormhole. Apparently when you're becoming a lawyer, you have to do what they call a moral character application, which is basically to make sure, that you're like morally sound to be somebody who is representing justice and like the law, which makes sense. So you have to put, if you have any ongoing lawsuits, I mean, literally anything, even like someone said like even like a parking ticket. It's like that intense, like anything you have to put into this moral character application. Yeah, Bryan Freedman was in the middle of his lawsuit for SA when he was submitting for his bar, which is crazy to think about, which means either he did not disclose his lawsuit to the state bar or the state bar let it slide. Which I just still want to know so badly. It's like a cliffhanger. Like, just let me know. Did you put it in there or did they let it slide? I'm just curious. You don't have to answer if you did it or not. I just want to know if you put it into your moral character application, lawyer boy. Yeah, apparently Bryan Freedman also recently, if you go onto YouTube, please go into that comment section because it's not lit at all. There's like 2 comments in there. I made a comment and they deleted it. Of course, all of my comments always get deleted because everyone hates me for calling out their but please go into the McGeorge comment section and watch the video of Bryan Freedman taking a nice little return to McGeorge because he couldn't graduate probably at Berkeley. I hope that you weren't able to. I hope that you weren't just not able to be in the yearbook, bro. I hope that you had more consequences for your alleged actions than just being kicked out of the yearbook. So anyways, go over to that video, leave a nice comment for Bryan Freedman. Ask McGeorge if they allowed him to get his bar, his license to be a lawyer in the middle of a lawsuit.
Sometime before that, somebody made the decision to allow me to graduate and actually got licensed. A shocker to most of my family.
So I got into contact with Rolling Stone right before I headed over to protest Bryan Freedman's law firm. But anyways, this lawyer introduced me to Ethan Millman at Rolling Stone because Ethan apparently he allegedly wrote an article about Stephen Cooper, which you probably don't know who that bald eagle is. No one does. No one does. I didn't know. He was the CEO of Warner Brothers. He got the because, hashtag blah, 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 me too, blah, 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 eat predators. Like, how many NDAs? How many NDAs? So yeah, anyways, he had a allegation from a incredibly wonderful, talented woman named Samantha Maloney, who unfortunately unfortunately ended up getting canceled before Stephen Cooper did, which is usually the theme, is the survivor gets canceled and then the gets to just keep his CEO position and keep. Ethan Millman did an article about Stephen Cooper and Samantha Maloney's NDA. I thought that meant he was chill, that he was somebody who understood, like, you know, what I realized is that he more understood like the way that Stephen Hicks thinks that Dan Schneider understood us at age 12. One of the first questions I actually asked Ethan was, what did Noah think about the public court documents? And Ethan said something along the lines of he isn't really shocked anymore. That's what's so funny when we all know Marty Singer. If not, we'll do an episode on him. Marty Singer needs to stop singing and be quiet for a little while. The sad part is that, you know, these most of the time blame survivors for coming forward to gain something from it, you know, but these men in these industries from both sides, from the lawyer side to the media side, all gain something from the abusers and the survivors. But the survivors, for some reason, are the only ones that get called out for that. And that's just like something that people need to think about more, is like, why are the survivors getting accused of coming forward to gain something, but not the industry around the abusers, like the lawyers and these media outlets, like Noah Chapman? What is his salary yearly for being the bulldog that goes after all the bad guys? I want to know. It's probably a lot more than I get for doing it for free and having to go to therapy all the while like going through all of it. So maybe Noah Chapman only writes his stories for the money. Wow, this man is, wow, he's going up against power. Yeah, for like a huge paycheck. Like, it feeds him. So, of course, it's easy to go up against these monsters as a man with a paycheck. Imagine what it's like going up against these with no paycheck, with no cushion, with no health care, etc. But these men are the ones who get all the praise. And then the survivor is the person who's like going after something. They're the ones literally doing it for pay. So Noah was thrilled about the story. Apparently, they all hated Bryan Freedman there at Rolling Stone. Mr. Me Too guy Jason Newman said that if I was in New York, he would take me for a cold beer and talk shit about Bryan Freedman. Which I declined. So Noah Chapman gave the green light for either, I think it was like a Thursday or a Friday. I think we protested Wednesday and it was like a Thursday, Friday green light. And sure enough, we protested. Ethan Millman was there, which means Rolling Stone was present. Next day came along, no article. Got into contact with Ethan. He said they just can't do it because there's not enough for them to publish the story, which was very bizarre because these are public court documents. There's a under oath deposition from the survivor in the court documents that are public. Access, everyone can get them. You just need like $70 basically to access these public court documents. But it wasn't enough for Rolling Stone to make a story about it. Thought that was kind of weird. But I don't know journalism that well. I don't know how it works. You know, like I didn't know every single moving piece of how a story gets published. That's not where I live. That's not my job. But I did find it pretty peculiar. And then Ethan comes back to me and says, how about you protest again, but with more people? Jason's telling me that if there's at least 30 people there, that it will be big enough news. Like they won't be creating the news. They'll be actually doing an article about the news, which I found was weird. It's like, you're not organizing the protests, guys. I'm organizing the protests. So how is this you guys creating news? Now you're creating news though, because you're telling me what I need to do to get the story published in Rolling Stone, which is like, That's shady. Now you're shady. Before it would have been chill. You comment like for survivors, like protesting, all sounds very chill. And now you're orchestrating the protest. I should have just put Jason Newman as like organizer for the protest. But anyways, he said 30 people would be a little bit more newsworthy. Not the fact that this lawyer is a gang, but if there's 30 people there, then it's newsworthy. So obviously I had to figure out how to organize a bigger protest, which I've never, done before. And it was complicated. How do you get 30 people to show up anywhere anymore? I mean, everyone's online, virtual. No one wants to show up anywhere, especially in Los Angeles. So started contacting different people. Strangely enough, I was able to get 30 people pretty much to show up to this protest that actually cared about what was taking place there. At around the same time, that's when LA Mag, yeah, you know LA Mag. Everyone knows LA Mag. I don't want to actually diss them because they did better than Rolling Stone. So it was Ethan and Abigail. Ethan from Rolling Stone, Abigail from LA Mag. I was hoping that was going to create also maybe some like fire under Rolling Stone's booties, because this is crazy that now LA Mag is showing up. Like, Rolling Stone should definitely be able to publish this story if LA Mag is basically making it seem that they can. Meanwhile, I'm organizing a bunch of other protests. I'm going to Red Light, I'm going to Warner, I have a lot of different protests that I'm also doing around this exact same time that Ethan Millman comes to. He just comes along to all of them. He was like, the kid in Almost Famous, basically, where he was just always there with his notepad, like just following the band or whatever. That was Ethan Millman. He was living his Rolling Stone dreams and following us around from protest to protest. This was a story that deserved to be told. And not only did it deserve to be told, it was extremely important for it to be told, because survivors deserve full disclosure about not only their lawyers who represent them, but also if they're going to be in a room getting deposed, having to relive their trauma, they deserve to know if that person who is grilling them, who is dehumanizing them, basically, is an alleged predator themselves. And they should have the right to say no to that lawyer and maybe pick another lawyer in the law firm, but definitely not that one. I felt like I did everything for Rolling Stone. I did a very clean protest. I did the interview. I did a second protest. I got more people there. And for some reason, it still wasn't enough for the story to be told. Makes no sense. Bryan Freedman is a very, very, very huge public figure. So obviously I was talking to my husband about it a lot. It was very frustrating as a survivor. First of all, to not only see that no one gives a about this, but also to realize that, things weren't making sense. I wasn't able to make sense around what the was happening. And then my husband looked into who owned Rolling Stone. And that's when we met. No, we didn't meet. That's when we came across Jay Penske. What's this? Dipshit popsicle? Ew, no.